Hi, welcome to Splitting Hairs. Today we've got a really great topic that Annabelle and I talk about all the time because it's really important. When should you work for free as a classical musician, as any artist, actually? This will be nuanced and varied, as it always is. There is no black and white answer here. Everything depends on the scenario, case by case. So we can basically end right now. Hi, how are ya?
Yeah, good. It's such a triggering question because I think everybody's first response is no, never, no, no.
Yeah.
So, are there any cases that you can think of where you have or would work for free?
Yeah, that's right. So we're not supposed to say, yes, you can work for free sometimes because it devalues our industry, and we shouldn't do that because there are a lot of people out there that absolutely rely on every cent that they make in this industry. And as you ask, are there cases where we should or can or would or sometimes can maybe negotiate a lower fee with someone? Absolutely. I think so. Now, obviously, it depends on who's paying. Who's
Mm,
paying? Is it Sony Music? Or is it, a little old lady down the road who just wants to put on a little community fun concert? So there's a massive spectrum of, what kind of event we're talking about here. So if you do a big recording for a big company and they're offering you $20 an hour, you should say no
no, yeah.
because they have money. Well,
Mm,
did I say Sony Music? I'm not really against Sony Music. I always use Sony Music as an example. And Sony Music in the past have paid me quite well. Thank you, Sony Music. Did a gig once for 15 minutes and they paid $400. So not complaining.
mm.
But if a big company offers you a gig and says, we're going to give you exposure as the payment. So this is another triggering word for us is
I
exposure.
have a
So
bank account. I have a bank account just for my
yeah,
like it
right.
helps me pay the bills and I can run the
Yeah.
car. Yeah, all that. No, on the
Yeah. So
thing. Oh,
it is a way that we are exploited because often what we do for a living has to do with getting exposure. And it's a real thing, getting exposure, getting known in the industry, getting known for, yeah, I can do that. And maybe next time I'll get money for it. I'll get known to the TV producers who run Dancing with the Stars, or I'll get known for this or that. But it often, in fact, 90 something percent of the time, doesn't give you any paid work after that event, which you've given for free.
mm.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yes, I've done some. Yes, I did a TEDx conference and none of us were getting paid. I don't know if the speakers were going to get paid, but I was playing with a DJ and he just said, okay, he was happy to do it because we did it. But he said the amount of work he did and the music he was playing and the performance, his fee would have been thousands and he did it for free.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
a classic. TEDx, TED Talks, TEDx. That is literally exposure. But let's just break down what exposure means. People are seeing you, thousands more people than normally would. But does that mean those people are going to then get online and go, I'm going to hire that person, give them money for what they
mm,
just did? Because it's unclear with TED who gets paid, who doesn't get paid. I don't know.
mm,
Do you know? Do people get paid to do
not a
TED Talks?
not a single clue.
No,
Well, I think you have
I
to
know.
pay to go, so there's money in there.
There's money floating around. So yeah, the TED Talks generate a lot of money. Yeah, it's kind of an
Mm.
interesting question. I'd probably do a TED Talk for free as long as I was allowed to use that content in whatever way I wanted
And I
to
never saw
promote
the
myself.
content. I never saw the content. I've,
Oh,
I've, I, it was in a small area in a small venue in St Kilda. It was TEDx St Kilda. It was being broadcast everywhere. I had no idea. And there was a whole separate event which I later was employed actually to go and play at
uh-huh.
when they were like premiering the TEDx St Kilda videos or whatever. And I never saw any of the recordings. I never got uploaded there because if you can go on YouTube and jump on TEDx or TED and see all the segments, the one we played in, never. I never saw
Okay.
the DJ promote it either. Yeah, it was
So this
bizarre.
is something we haven't talked about in all of our conversations is if you do something for free, can you use that to help you gain money after you've done this free gig?
Mm,
So whenever I'm presented with that, which is something I haven't thought about talking to you about before, but if someone says, do this gig for nothing, I often say to them, can I record it? Can I film it? Can I use it? Because then you can just cobble together some sort of promo thing and use that. So use those kinds of free gigs. Want to do them for your experience or whatever, see if you can grab some of that, make an arrangement with whoever's organizing. Can I use this footage? And usually if you can't use the footage, they're getting something out of your contribution and you're not getting anything either. So you've got to be careful with
the taking the free gigs thing is one thing. The other thing is taking the really low paying gigs. And I think I don't know, like I've been there. I've had the not great gigs, and it's sort of like you have to weigh up the cost of, are they getting more out of me than I'm getting out of it? And when you're maybe uni and it's your first ever little paying little thing that's fun, it's like, yeah, go do it. It's gonna be fun of it. But if you take yourself seriously, if you're a performer, if this is what you want to make your career out of, you have to start making those decisions. And if you don't take yourself seriously and back yourself, then no one else will. They're not going to take you seriously, so they'll keep offering lower rates or something. It's like, no, like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or they keep being encouraged to offer low rates, or they're not encouraged to go and find some more money from somewhere to pay musicians cheaper gigs as well. But usually when I'm controlling it, I can choose people who also have a good salary, who don't rely on it so much. So I can say, look, there's this cheapy little cute, beautiful gig. Do you want to do it with me? It's only, say $100 a call or whatever. Do you want to do it? It's a good cause. They don't have much money. And I get to do a really fun, beautiful thing in a situation that I'm 100% controlling. So, me, that's very important to me. If I'm not controlling anything, I want to be paid a lot of money, because that makes up for the fact that I don't choose the music, I don't choose the bowings, I don't choose anything about it. So that's very important to me. If I have to sit through a 3-hour rehearsal with really terrible bowings, or bowings that aren't put in, or parts that are really dirty and horrible, I would rather stay home and earn any money, have a rest, Yeah, so there's a lot of concerns and considerations with when to take a lower paid gig. So if it wasn't for this lockdown, we're in lockdown again, everyone. Isn't that great?
Well, this show was born in lockdown.
If it wasn't for this lockdown, yeah, it was actually beautiful. Groundhog Day. So if it wasn't for this lockdown, you and I, remember, we have accepted a gig that is not highly paid, because when we were having a meeting for this very episode, we're halfway through our meeting of talking about all these issues and what we were going to talk about, and we were making our list. And I got a phone call from someone who was doing this really interesting, beautiful project as part of her assessment for something. And it was in a church, and it had a beautiful theme, and she needed 2 violins. So I'm like, I wouldn't believe what I was just asked to do. This lower paid gig, so under minimum call rate, which is floating around as it being around $170 a call, which is usually 2.5 hours or 3 hours. Anyway, she's like, can you do this gig? I'm like, well, I have to find out, is the music hard? And I was asking all these questions, and, who have you asked? Who have you got? Are there other string players? Like, my questions just like
you were very
coming
nice.
at her. Of course it was nice.
Like, it was just, but I could see that we just talked about it. And so you went, well, I'm going to do the due diligence. I'm going to ask all the right questions. And then, is it something that you're going to do, or are you going to help? Because you offered to help find somebody else if you couldn't have done it anyway.
Well, before I asked you to do it, I had to find out whether the music was a certain kind of music, like really hard music, contemporary music, awful, like have to rehearse a lot, have to practice a lot, or not. So found that out, like, we had a laugh, ha, ha, ha. And then I emailed this girl again and got all the music, and I thought, they need another violin. Like, I'm going to ask Annabel. And so Monday we're supposed to go for our first rehearsal with this lovely person, with this beautiful project. So I'm kind of sad we're in lockdown, because I was looking forward to that rehearsal. But there's an example of find out as much information as you can. I mean, you don't know if this person has rich parents or whatever and could fork out $300 a call. But, she's doing something meaningful, special, educational, and I wanted to support that, and
Yeah.
you did too. So you agreed to take this
Yeah.
fee as well, because otherwise, what would we be doing on a couple of Monday nights leading up to a Sunday concert? So it's also whether you want to cram your life up with extra things as well that don't pay as much. You wouldn't get that money at all otherwise. So there's that concern as well, I guess. Yeah. So who's paying? How much money do they have? Yeah, let's talk about teaching prices. This is there's a big spectrum there as
This
well.
one does not.
Yeah. So what's your experience there from the lowest paid to sort of the highest paid?
Well, when you start taking just any gig like the mug, any any
Mugs are going to
any
be for sale soon, apparently.
yeah, apparently, um, I sort of went into teaching like for people in studios and stuff like that at what they were offering and just going, I'm going to pay my dues and just get my foot in the door and
What do you mean studios? You mean those private
yeah,
music
yeah,
schools that
yeah,
they employ teachers and pay the teachers a percentage of what the parents
yeah.
pay?
So I just went, let's just do it, and I did it, and you get better at teaching the longer you teach, the more you teach, all of that, and just as it went, I just started realizing this is worth it financially for me.
Bit too exploitative, yeah.
I've really enjoyed teaching. I've loved all those in that. But when I started doing the math in my head, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm giving
Not cutting
100%
it.
of my energy to these students. And a lot of them are babies as well, which needs even more energy because they need
Yep.
that much more help and attention. And I just went, oh, just no. And what bothers me is that if same with like little community gigs and things like that, or even higher up gigs, if they keep putting out a certain rate that people would get paid and people keep accepting it, stepping up and sort of saying, well, no, or challenging it a little bit, it's going to keep perpetuating it.
I don't
So
think you can compare the two things though. Like, I don't think you can, sorry to argue with you because I kind of agree with you, but those two things you've described don't relate. You're talking about a bunch of cowboys out there, private music schools, charging parents a lot, and those parents don't know how much the school is paying you unless they ask. So
yeah,
it's a slightly more exploitative way of music education. It's not really about education, it's about making a lot of profit. And I'm not speaking for every single one of those schools, but I haven't heard about a school like that, that the teachers have wanted to really stay and they feel like they're a part of something really great. They do it like a kind of apprenticeship, get their foot in the door, learn a
yeah.
bit more about teaching and go, and then charge
But I
more,
mean,
better rates,
if we don't stop now, this is going to be about teaching, which is coming in another episode. But it's sort of like like I don't like the idea of younger baby students like not getting really great education. Like there's discrepancies in teachers, which leads to students going up the ranks, holes in the technique, want to get it
Yeah.
serious. Like it's gonna back. Like if you just have this, and I've been in those places where the teacher like shuffled through students, just whatever, have
Yeah.
your 30 minutes, no substance.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been a part of. And I just went, I'm not doing that. At the moment, I walked away
You
from
don't
that.
teach.
Not for the moment. I was really burnt out after COVID online teaching. But when I go back to it, I'm going to offer it as it's got to be honestly in person and a certain level and a certain pay rate because you're getting 100% of my energy and attention for your benefit. And I enjoy teaching so that I can help you in your technique and be really specific. And those schools and all that, it's just filtered through. It's just it's a nightmare. Yeah.
Yes,
But the
and they
pay,
also rely on your ethics and your morals to make a relationship with these students, and then you feel like you can't just abandon the students, and that personal connection you always make with that student and their family, and you're putting in a lot of effort, but the money to effort balance
yeah.
isn't right, and so
Yeah. And
at
then
some
and
point
then
you have to go. Yeah,
yeah, and at some point at that same point you'd go, well, I do love teaching and all that, but this is the level that I'm now teaching at. Therefore, the money has to equate that. And it's the same with performance.
Yep.
I would never ever put a gig together and ask you to play and not offer something that I would never say, could you do this for free? Unless it was
me.
yeah, you, because of the backing that you have and the leg to stand on, like a professional unless it was a volunteer, whatever thing, it's like you just get to that level of that's what you're worth, basically.
Yeah, but again, you can't be black and white about it either, because if you were putting on some project, say a podcast that started in COVID, and you wanted my expertise, my opinions, my this and that about it, of course I'd do it for nothing.
Yeah, it's podcast.
It's the same thing. It's time. See, we're not just talking about teaching either. We're talking about you're being paid for your expertise and your time. That's why lessons go for about an hour, or with kids, half an hour, whatever. With more grown-ups or more mature people, more advanced people, the lesson goes for about an hour. So your hour, as you say, you have focused and energetic and one-on-one, complete attention to the people paying you money. It's a lot of money for some people. I'm not the most expensive person I know by far, but I'm definitely not the cheapest. I've put it to a price that I feel is good enough for me to give you absolute attention. I go over quite a bit, but not by very much, 5-10 minutes over, because actually, which as you know is quite exhausting. Like, I don't really let up, and the older I get, the better I get at it. So I don't feel bad about charging a certain amount. I do feel bad about charging a lot more than that, because I know I earn quite a good salary, but I'm still struggling financially. It's hard to get ahead in this world, and everyone feels the same way. It's hard to get ahead with COVID and everything. So as a teacher, like when we were talking to Anna, remember how she was
Yeah.
she was talking about valuing herself. So here we are again at that self-esteem issue of, well, you have to value what you're doing and the way you're doing it before you can put your price up to match, say, someone else who you feel, well, I'm at that level. I know what they're charging. Maybe I could also charge that. And when you put your price up, it's really hard too. Like I have a method, thanks to another friend of mine. I said, I don't know how to put my price up. I feel bad. She says, don't feel bad. Don't put it up unless you get a new student. When you get a new student, you begin the next level of your, if you're a tenant in a rental, the price goes up. Prices at the shops go up. Why do we feel bad about putting our expenses go up? Why can't we put our price up? It's our profession, So we have to be very careful valuing ourselves and what we do, definitely.
Well, we're lucky we live in a culture that we, like, say, the Western world and Australia and all that. We value arts. We value art, an abundance of it, and on different levels, and it's quite nuanced, but
Well, yeah, we value it, except that our top people don't really value it.
I was avoiding that part.
Well, I mean, without getting into the politics of it, which I can't be bothered with today. But the weird thing with the government that often represents moneyed people, they don't know how they got there. They got there with an incredibly varied, luxurious education, which often included music, that just was there. But it wasn't just there. Someone had to pay for it. The government used to put in a lot of money into music education back in my day, but they simply don't anymore. And so that standard just lowers and lowers and lowers and lowers over the years. And everyone rants and raves, oh, the arts, the arts, the arts. And the government's like, what do you mean? It's fine, because they went through a system which had everything, and now the system doesn't have it anymore, and they don't even notice. And if their kids want it, they just pay for it. It's just all private.
Even on not even to the politics of it and the government, so to speak, but just in the way it's like we have schools that have music, we have private music schools that want to give music education. We have, it's always not just classical, but contemporary events with all types of bands and music and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's just in our culture that music is a part of it. Whether it's appreciated or not depends on different levels and stuff like that, but it's there. So
maybe we're talking about classical music that's been down, because there's no question people love music theatre, which has a basis in classical music. People love pop, which has a basis in classical music. People love all sorts of things, movie music, everything, which all has a basis in classical music. So as soon as we lose that connection to, where did all this music kind of come from? The only music that didn't really come from classical music is jazz. And so that's awesome. That's America, though. America has. Anyway, sorry, off
tangent.
Off point.
Okay, I was gonna I was going to ask, okay, so you can't keep saying yes to these badly paid gigs.
Okay, yeah, what are the consequences of badly paid gigs? Yep.
Okay. You'll just, I don't know. I've seen that happen to some people. They burn out. They lose their love for playing,
Yes.
if that's what it is. But then if you start sort of arcing up a bit too much,
You won't
you're
get
going to get
asked
a bad
back.
you're going to get a bad reputation.
Yep. You might lose that work.
So
Yeah.
what do we do? Where's the balance? I want to be able to, I mean, I would love to get asked to play in concerts and gigs and whatever
Yep.
and hope that it's paid properly. But I'm in a position to make my money in other areas as well. I'm not going to say yes to everything because there's things that I want to do and time and money and all of that. I make those calls.
Yeah.
But, you know, some
Yes,
people
the
don't say
answer is quite esoteric, and I don't know if you like this kind of answer, but I don't care. So here's my answer. The answer is in what you kind of send out to the universe, what kind of life you want. And to find that kind of life that you want, you have to know what you want. So often it's hard to know what you want when you're too busy, you're doing terrible gigs all the time, you run off your feet, you can't pay the bills. You have to take a moment every now and again to really dwell on what kind of life you want, what kind of a life you deserve. The self-esteem comes in here again. Like I had a friend once who had an extremely amazing career in classical music. Tried to sort of get out of it, and she kept getting drawn back into it by bad gigs, right? And then she said, no, I don't want to take any more gigs that are not well paid and that I'm not the leader. So she started saying no to gigs, but she started saying no, but I will accept leadership gigs if you have any in the future. This kind of thing. And she said it nicely and positively, and she sent a positive message out to the universe and to everyone that she was no longer going to take bad gigs, underpaid gigs, or gigs that she wasn't the leader. So as I mentioned before, I'll take a low paid gig if I'm controlling every aspect of it. So that's its own satisfaction, and I can pick the people and so on.
Yeah.
So it took maybe a couple of years, but it worked. She was only being asked to play solo gigs or very well paid gigs where she's the only instrumentalist. And what was the other thing? She was the leader when she got asked to do it. So
that sounds like
you have to dwell on what it is you think you want. If you want a full life of being burnt out by classical music, that's there. If you're in Melbourne, my God, there is so much work that you can do for not very much money. You can burn yourself out, or you can sit back. You can somehow get another job, as you've done, and maybe work towards a 6 months practice goal. You want to get on the casual list of an institution that pays a little bit better. You know, you have to focus your energy in. At some point, you have to focus going, this is not what I want. That's what I want. And the steps that I need to get there are these steps.
Add to that, if you want a performance career, you have to get creative.
Yep.
You have to get, there's no online, whatever company, and there's a job, there's an application, you fill it, you go for the interview, you get it, there's your salary, 9 to 5, done. That doesn't exist in our music world as performers. It does not. And when you realize that, you go, well, do I want that? Yes or no? If you don't want that, you go another way. If you want that, you have to get creative. So are classical musicians creative in this aspect? Yes. So for me personally, I went, all right, I know what I don't want. I've always known what I don't want and what I want my 9 to 5 to not look like. I went, okay, how do I make that work in other aspects? And that's what I've been doing over the last few years, putting things in place. It looks different to other people. My family, they walked out of uni into full-time jobs, Monday to Friday. They're exceptionally happy and successful. I went, I don't want that. But I want the happy and successful part, but just in a different light, you know.
But on your own terms, you're a quite powerful mind as well. You don't want to be beholden to anyone.
A part of that is to do with, say, teaching and these gigs that we're talking about. I've done it. I've paid my dues in that respect. And I've gone, well, thankfully, I'm not reliant on every single gig to come along. But if you get yourself into a position that you're a performer, and I don't know how or what, but you are waiting on every single gig, that doesn't seem like it's going to be that productive or
it's very demoralizing for those people. Very there's no security in it. That's the problem.
And then look at what something like COVID's done. So you know, I had a concert tomorrow I was meant to play in, cancelled. And actually, speaking of, that's actually a free, that's something that I I don't really like doing things for free in that sense, but there's a couple things that I will say yes to, because this one in particular is my friend from uni. He gets all his uni friends together. We play some music. He just wants to be able to conduct an orchestra.
Mm.
I can't pay, but he fronts the money up for everything else. It's a lot of fun. It's all our friends, but he gets his friends in to record, so we get that as a take home, and we can use the footage whenever we want, that kind of
Yep,
thing. So
beautiful.
that's me weighing up everything and going, yeah, I got a solo with
It's
that
worth it.
orchestra
Yep.
last year, that kind of thing. So you make those calls, but if this is what you're after, if you want to be in performance, then you have to know, are you being, ripped off? Is it going
Yeah.
to benefit you? Sometimes you make those calls over, all right, it's not that low of a gig, but that person's in it and I'd like to get to know
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
without
Absolutely.
without without using people. Like, try not to go down that
Yeah.
mental sort of thing.
Well,
But
I mean, well, you can turn it around. Instead of being a
yeah.
victim, you can exploit your situations much better, much to your
Yeah,
advantage, much more.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
like you said at the start of this, it was never going to be one answer. So should you play for free? Like,
Yeah.
that's your own call to make, but you should know everything, every aspect of what it is you're being asked to do. Because I hate those gigs where it's been high call rates, lower pay, and then they just extend the call in the actual call.
Oh,
They
you
go, can
mean
you stay?
a
Like,
long call, low pay, and then they ask to go overtime.
yeah, so yeah,
This
and I've
is a
I've been in there.
nightmare.
And the musicians have just said to the conductor,
No.
they just said no, and the conductor's gone, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, and I've sat there and I said yes once, and I just went, never again,
No,
never
you
again,
can't,
because it's
because once
just
you say yes, and that's what the unions in the 80s really, really, really fought for, is the non-exploiting behavior of people like that.
yeah,
So thank you to those people who were on the front lines of unionism, musicians union in the UK mainly, and then that spread to Australia, and yeah, so we do need protection like any other industry. We need to take care of ourselves physically like any other industry. We're mentally more like athletes, even though we're sitting down. We're more like athletes in the preparation that we need and the physical aspect to what we're doing. We have to take care of ourselves. We have fatigue. We have mental fatigue. We have a lot of mental illness in our community, because this is going to sound weird, but because we work nights and we have such not great stress management. Like, a lot of us will go to the bar afterwards, which is great when you're young, but it can turn into problems later as well. So, we've got a whole lot of mental issues that we need to be really mindful of. And if on top of that, we've got the stress of no security in our futures. So I like your point about, if you feel like it's not the life that you thought you wanted, being a performing musician, but feeling too exploited, not getting enough money, no job security, maybe it is time to somehow try and earn some money in another way. I know that's much easier to say, even though
yeah,
the
because you
sentence
have
is very clunky. It's much easier to say that than to actually formulate a reasonable plan. Because if you get called for MSO or any group that's going to pay you, if you get called but you've got a little regular part-time job that clashes with that, then that's a dilemma as well. So yeah,
yeah,
it's a very difficult thing being a freelance musician, especially in the classical world. And it's not because there's not enough work. There's a lot of work, but a lot of it's not paid that well. So
I
yeah.
I know this story, right? So, friend of a friend, but someone I know was on the casual list, and the day he got called, he didn't answer because he was in the bathroom. And then the second he got back to call them back,
They'd
they're
filled
like,
it.
they filled it.
It is literally waiting by the phone. You have to wait by the phone. Oh, because usually three people have gone sick, and our orchestra manager has to just like fill that
Yeah,
spot like
it's a
that.
list, isn't it? Just a list.
It's literally a list.
Unavailable, unavailable, unavailable. You're on.
Yeah. And the list is ordered every now and again. That's probably a secret that I shouldn't say, but I think it's reasonable to order a list. You can't just have the list from 1983. You've got to like work out who's still around, and so no,
I
I
think
stand by the way we do it. Absolutely.
I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I think
I
so too.
think, when should you get paid for free? Triggering question,
But
you
whenever
know.
you want, but find out as much information as you can,
Yeah.
and say no to Sony if they want you to work for free, or Ted. I don't know. Ted's grey area. All right, we'll
Okay.
leave you with the grey area today, everyone. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share on the YouTubes and everything. All right, have a good day.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.